It's time for today's episode of the UGASports Live Podcast, recorded in front of a slightly tipsy studio audience at world-famous Champy's Fried Chicken. We will have the latest on Georgia Bulldogs football, basketball, and recruiting. Watch live and send us your questions on the 11 Alive Sports page on Facebook. Be advised this podcast is off the record and not safe for work. Also, be sure to subscribe to the UGASports Live Podcast on iTunes and Google Play.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to UGASports Live Podcast. We're here at Champy's on Baxter Street. My name is Rodney DeBulsey. I'm joined by Jake Roos and former Georgia head coach Jim Donnan. The main reason you guys are watching is to hear Coach Donnan talk to us. And we understand that, we accept it, we know our places. So thanks, Coach Donnan, for coming out each week and doing the show with us. And Jake has to do the show or he'll be fired. So he doesn't have a choice, so I'm not going to thank him.
It's part of my contract?
Oh, if you had one, that would be the best joke of the day. Anyway, thanks all you people for tuning in. If you're watching this live, if you're on the 11 Live Facebook page, we just ask that you would like their page. That's all they ask for letting us come on and ruin their journalistic credibility is to just they're in it for the like. So if you would like their page, we'd appreciate it. It is not an endorsement of anything we say on the show. It is an endorsement of 11 Alive. So
Quite the opposite, probably.
Exactly. So be sure to like their page. I want to give a quick shout out to our other sponsors, Athens Ford. I'm going to tell you about some of the cool stuff they're doing later on. Aaron Overhead Doors, big sponsor of the show. Your Pie. If you want to get a good pizza, swing by there. Academia Brewing Company, we're knocking back a couple beers today. Of course, Cable East, who has no reason to sponsor the show, but they do anyway. And 365 Game Day. And, of course, we are here at Champions, and we're going to have some what's he putting out today?
Today we're going to get a new item on the menu. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. We'll talk about it when it hits the table.
Okay. All right. So I know that Champions is constantly catering for the –
That's part of your contract. You find out stuff like that. We don't.
Well, we only pay him in food. He does not get an actual monetary salary. He gets paid in chicken fingers and fried chicken and beer.
They're moving me up to wet food.
Exactly.
Is that right?
So for the folks that if you've ever – and we've had some folks come in. They came in last week. A young lady had a birthday party, went by Academia and Champions. So that's a good birthday party to have. Birthday weekend, I should say. But I always want to say, if you're curious about it, think about this. Kirby Smart, who oversees every part of his system over there, he uses Champions to cater all the time. They cater practice, meals, coaches' meals, events all the time. They're when recruits come in.
Hey, if it's good, if Kirby thinks it's good enough for recruits,
that's the point I'm trying to make. So I'm not going to do a whole 45-minute commercial on Champions. I just want to say, if Kirby Smart is using it to land 5-star recruits, it's good enough for you to come by and have a meal. That's
right.
That's
not
all I'm
only
saying.
recruits, but the staff during the week, the players during the week. It's just what kids like, and you got to cater to their needs. And the other thing is just the service involved. Josh just does a great job of being around there and doing what he's supposed to and making sure everything's on, like it's supposed to be. And you just can't relate to being a head coach maybe like I can on this show, just from the standpoint everything needs to go exactly right when a kid's in here. I mean, it's just
we hear about it when it doesn't.
And
Boy,
like Joe Kynes told me one time when Coach Bryan had passed away, and they had a new new head coach over there, Ray Perkins. And this is a true story, but they were having kids in for the weekend to like we do, and they had breakfast for them, and most of us have steak and eggs, to get them. And
right.
So this one kid comes back, and Coach Bryant's been dead 2 years now. This one kid comes back and asked Joe, said, "Hey, can I have another steak?" And he said, "Sure." He said, "Well, that lady up there said I couldn't." So he goes up to the deal and says, Hey, Marie, he said, "What's the deal here?" He said, "We're trying to recruit this guy. You need to give him another steak." He said, "You can't." He said, "Why not?" He said, "Coach Bryant said you couldn't."
He's been dead 2 years. Oh, crap.
So Josh gives them all they can eat there. What is this?
Now, this is the chicken Philly that's just debuting
I like
on the
that.
menu.
Oh, hello.
Some fried jalapenos on that. This is don't
Chicken Philly.
Don't touch it.
Hey, we need
Hey,
three
come
of
on,
those. to
Dave.
go.
Say that. Dave's going to order it.
We got Dave popping up over there, too, our main man, Dave. Let's check it out. Yeah. Nowadays, if you – you remember the whole to-do about the – I don't know if you remember the whole to-do about the – 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 the bagels and not getting cream cheese on the bagels, the NCAA coming out with that stuff, you know.
Yep.
And I think they've walked some of that back, but just the ridiculousness amount of what are you going to feed these guys? And we're not just talking about Champions folks here. The point being, we're in the recruiting final stages. They had a ton of recruits in this past weekend. They're going to have a junior day this coming Saturday. Right. When Coach is talking about this stuff has to go right, and then you roll out the red carpet, he's lived it. He's done it. You know, he's been there. I remember hearing stories when you had recruits coming in and taking care of them, you know, back in the day, and you signed you signed a few Hall of Famers. You know?
Well, hopefully this weekend, next weekend, we're going to get Champ in, maybe Richard Seymour, you know, and 5 out of the 15. That's great. But, you know, there's a lot of planning goes on. You got to realize, too, that just like in any business, you're dealing against 4 other schools. You know, how do you compare when they go to that other school? But the thing that's happened with our staff, and I think particularly in Kirby's case, he's built up that relationship. So when most of these guys come in, they've been around our staff and their families a lot, you know, during the camps, during the summer, during the unofficial visits for games. But, you know, if a guy just comes in for a one-shot deal, it's hard, you know, like that Shepherd kid was supposed to be here last week in offensive lineman, but they had some breakdowns there at the Houston airport because of certain things that were happening. But he didn't get to make the trip. But, you know, that's a long shot for sure. But anyhow, we're getting ready for a big show today, like Ed Sullivan would say. And I saw this guy over at Academy Sports, and he said, "Coach, I listen to the broadcast, watch it all the time." I said, "How come you're not telling any jokes anymore?" I said, "Well, there's a lot of serious stuff been going on, you know."
Very serious stuff, yes.
But I'm just going to start out with a good joke today to get everybody ready to go. But there was this Mother Superior in this Irish convent over there in the Catholic convent over in Ireland, and she knew everything. She could project everything. She was very good about predicting what was going on, and everybody in the church just counted on her for her wisdom, you know. But she was on her deathbed, and you know, all the nuns were around her and the priest and everything, and she really wouldn't eat anything or anything like that. So one of the younger nuns just knew that one of the things she really liked was warm milk. So she goes over to the kitchen to get some warm milk for her, and she notices over there on the side that somebody had given a fifth of scotch to some of the priest for Christmas. And so she said, "Well, what the heck?" So I'm just going to pour a little bit of this in it. And what the heck? So she poured about half the bottle in there. So they took it in there and said, "Oh, Mother Superior, can you just give us a little wisdom here before you pass?" Said, "Everybody's waiting for you." And so she kind of grabbed it up to her and took a little bit of sip, and then all of a sudden just downed it, you know. And they said, "Okay, Mother Superior, what can we say? What can you tell us?" She said, "Don't sell that cow." All right, here we go.
Nice. Way to lather us up there, Coach.
That's a decent joke.
That's good stuff.
Right.
That's good stuff.
See, we always judge or I always judge the jokes by, am I going to call my dad after the show's over?
Tell you dad now.
Joke? Yes, I will.
All right, that's good.
And he'll get a kick out of that.
So we got off to a good start here, but let's go.
I want to go straight – we're talking about recruiting, and yes, Georgia has a new defensive backs coach. We have a million things to do, and we will be happy to answer your questions if you go ahead and send them in. Like we said, thank you for sharing this. We see we got a bunch of shares already. If you got a question, go ahead and answer it. Now is the time to get it. You know, leading up to G-Day, which is going to be April 20th. They've technically announced it today, but we've known for a while that it was going to be April 20th. I think it came out in somebody else's they put
it on Georgia Dogs like 2-3 weeks ago.
Yeah. So anyway, it's been officially announced today that it's April 20th, which means the Rivals is going to have to move one of our camps.
Also means I'm going to have to stay sober for my birthday.
Oh.
Is your birthday the 20th?
It's the 19th. So
when has that ever stopped you? Such a liar.
More sober.
Sober-ish. Yeah. I mean,
Speaking of,
hey, it's January. You're supposed to have a New Year's resolution about lying to people. Anyway, so we get the 20th coming up. Georgia still hasn't named a defensive coordinator yet, but they do have a new defensive backs coach, and we got other stuff to talk about. But I want to jump right into recruiting. Big recruiting weekend last weekend. Jake, tell us who was in town.
Yeah, it was a big recruiting weekend. And as Coach said, you missed on one guy that you'd really hoped to get in, and that was Giovanni Shepherd. Now, I will say, not really that big of a heartbreaker, not a guy you were expecting to end up at Georgia in the long term. an official visit. Who knows what that changes? You can never gauge that fully enough. But
Junior Day changed Julian Rochester's mind completely.
Exactly.
One visit.
Pulling out of that visit, though, not a total surprise. I think going to end up at Texas, probably Texas A&M, the other big consideration there. So Giovanni Shepard was the one guy who didn't make it. However, they did have a number of other big visitors on campus, especially in the 2019 class. Chief among them, probably, I would say, Mark Anthony Richards of Palm Beach, Wellington High School down in Palm Beach County. A guy who is a bit interesting in this class, I think. He's a Rivals 100 member, a kid who's a versatile player, plays a number of spots for his team. Had told us that he'd kind of written the Bulldogs off initially, circled back around on that, and seemed to really enjoy his visit this weekend.
I thought it was interesting that he wrote Georgia off because they offered him as a receiver.
Yeah, and I think at the time he said he got it as a sophomore, right. And he said, at the time I was just thinking strictly running back. That was it. And he said the longer I kind of simmered on it, the more I thought, wait a second, this is Georgia. Why am I telling him? Why am I telling him no? I'll play whatever.
Yeah.
So he made the trip this past weekend, said his parents were really impressed. We got the full recap over at UGAsports.com with all the quotes from him. Kirby Smart, huge compliment to the young man while he was on campus, compared him to Alvin Kamara. And said that's a guy that, he said, I've coached a guy like you. He said, I feel like we could use you in similar ways to how Alvin Kamara is used in the NFL. So,
a lot of people know what Kirby's done here and at Alabama and all, but he was the lead guy on Alvin Kamara for Alabama. I mean, that to go into Atlanta and get that kid was huge, being the defensive coordinator at Alabama. But he really did a terrific job. And, they got into a situation where they had Henry and all those other guys. And Ingram, they just had a hard time getting him in the game. And so he transferred to Tennessee, and Butch Jones had a hard time getting him in the game.
Yeah, well, I think that's
what I mean. He never played the guy.
I think that's pretty fair
What's
to
the
say.
Question there?
No, it's not a question. It's something I wanted Roddy to see for later because we'll definitely be mentioning this story. But Mark Anthony Richards, I'm still skeptical about the fit for this class because the reality of it is Georgia has very few spots left. I think that at max 3, probably more realistically 2. And I think that's about as far as you can go in this class. I don't think that an athlete like that necessarily makes sense, especially a guy.
It gives you 2 spots, though.
It's true, but he seems reticent to play wide receiver, and really that's what you need is a guy who is a wideout. Speaking of, George Pickens made the trip this past weekend. Now I'm not gonna sit here and tell you that I've got like crazy mad insight on George Pickens,
but you do have scoop at UGAsports.
Yes, he's gone silent. Not doing any interviews with anybody right now. Don't expect that we'll get anything from him before signing day. I doubt anybody will, to be honest with you. He's just really shut things down. I think that it's just not a process he's interested in engaging any further. And he's never been a big talker. If you catch him in person, he might give you an interview, but not a guy who answers the phone, DMs, anything like that. But huge need. I think that he is definitely one of Georgia's biggest remaining needs. Probably fills the biggest need that they've got, which would be to add another receiver in this class. But we've talked about it before. We've mentioned it here. We mentioned it over at UGAsports.com. Some grade questions, and so how will that end up figuring it out? I don't know. I think that it's a situation where it's a wait and see at this point.
All right, Coach, you've been in this situation. I know. I'm not going to name names, but you've had guys on the hook that you really wanted. George Pickens is a 5-star wide receiver. We've seen him in person. He is every bit of a 5-star wide receiver. I'm not going to quibble over the ranking. I know he's very talented, but you don't know if he's going to make grades. If you got 2-3 spots, you need a running back, you need a defensive back, you need an offensive lineman, you absolutely need a wide receiver. What do you tell a guy who's borderline grades, or do you take him on signing day?
Sign that thing, baby.
Okay. I just wanted to know. I wanted to know.
No, I mean, he's a 5-star guy. I mean, if he's borderline, you got to take him and hope he makes it. If he's not, if he's just a guy that has no shot, you can't afford to take him and not sign somebody else.
Okay,
and then
that's what I want to know.
kid go to junior college. But I thought you did a good job of setting that whole thing up. You bring a guy like Richards in who can fill a lot of needs besides just being a back, but he can be return kicks, do a lot of stuff. But, 3 positions or 2, is he the best player? You look at the best player available first. And
Good
to
point.
me, you look at Elam because not only best player, but maybe because he's a position of need too there. Even though we did recruit some good guys, and we got the junior college corner in here, and we got Stevenson in here, which was huge, and you liked him out there at the game. But
Absolutely.
you can't get enough DBs. You never know how they're going to pan out. But I think the whole thing to me is just take the best player first, and then if that's not available, then you got to go by your needs, which might be receiver, DB, O-line, and there's not that many. That's why you bring a guy like Shepard in, because all of a sudden, Nestor decided to stay closer to home, even though we gave him a good run. But it's going to be an interesting scenario, and that's where you got to keep enough names on the table in case somebody does fall from that you think you might have a shot, that you can give that scholarship to, that would fit into not only your needs but fit into the culture of your program.
Well, and you mentioned, I think, a very, very good point, and it's something that people have brought up a lot to me. Why is Georgia focusing on a defensive back and with one of these last couple spots?
And tell them who visited.
This weekend you had Kyer Elam, 4-star Rivals 250 guy out of Palm Beach as well. Goes to the Benjamin School. Really long, fast, quick guy who plays a little bit of everywhere. Hey, I think he's a very good defensive back. If you need a receiver, I think he could do that in a pinch too. I have seen his highlight film.
So basically the reverse Mark Webb.
Yeah, exactly. You had Elam there. I think that's got to be Georgia's biggest target right now, and I think that only became,
But they've got a bunch.
That's true. That's true.
Well, we got a bunch of names, but
Exactly.
we got a lot of good
I'm just saying
players.
that's
I don't mean
the-
it like I don't quote me on that name. We got a bunch of guys that have potential, but are they going to develop like Mark Webb
don't
did?
know.
Are they going to develop like Devod Wilson did over the whole
Stokes,
deal? Stokes, for sure, the best development, which we told you last spring was going to come along, and he did. But I think you lose 2 guys in Gibbs and Bishop. I guess Bishop's transferred. I don't know if he's in the portal, but I don't know if he – so those are numbers you lose, and then you lose a guy like Baker coming out early. So what do you do there?
You got a safety
Baker
and 2
wasn't early.
cornerbacks.
He's a senior,
but
you lose him.
You got him. Yeah. Jarvis Wilson graduates at the same time. You've got a guy like Latavius Brenny, who is he going to make an impact? If he's going to, it better be this year.
Amir
or else
Speed only played in
Amir
a
Speed.
game? 2 games?
Well, Speed got
He's
hurt.
injured.
Though.
That's what I was saying.
Yeah.
I think Speed's going to be all right.
But, it's a situation where, and I think that you hit the nail on the head, Coach. You just don't know with these guys. You don't know how they're going to develop. And for anybody who's been following this since Kirby Smart got here, they do not go short on defensive backs, and they don't go short on offensive linemen.
You got to have 4. There's 4, but really there's really 5 because we're a nickel-based team.
Yep.
We play 5 defensive backs a lot more than we do.
Yeah, you pointed this out last time because I remember in the middle of summer I asked you, is Georgia a 4-3 team, 3-4 team, and you're like, they're a nickel team, and I'm like, and you broke it down, and I think Georgia was in nickel about 60-something% of the time.
And dime.
Yeah.
We played 6.
Say, if you add another 12% they were in dime, and so
the whole
you're
game
like 70-something. Yeah.
But and you factor into there's going to be a monumental change in our secondary as far as coaching. Not only we lose Tucker, but we lost Tyson Summer. We lost Tillman. So we lose 3 of our 4 defensive back coaches. We bring in a very good coach in Warren, but, Bakari Rambo is going to still be around here. But, all of these support personnel people help in so many ways when you watch the development of players, because you can't coach a guy all the time on the field. I mean, behind the scenes is important. How much time can you meet with these guys on your own, like these other support people do a great job of teaching our system and working with these younger guys and helping supplement Kirby and the staff. So I think that's going to be a real issue this spring is how quickly these new support people that come in, and it's a proven system. I mean, that's what he's always done. He's had a lot of individual one-on-one training with these guys off the field, which teaches you if you know your assignment, you can play a lot better. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. And I think that that's a key thing in all of this is, as much as we're talking about the progression of these early enrollees and how will those guys take to it, it's just as important for how will these new support staff guys come in and fill those roles, because you lost, like you said, some really talented guys, some very experienced guys with great resumes behind their names. So it's going to be an interesting spring in that regard. Another visitor this weekend, Brett Seether, 3-star tight end out of Clearwater, Florida. Another guy who I think Georgia has targeted very heavily here toward the end with the lead up to signing day. The reality is you need a tight end. I think that's important. Maybe not necessarily priority A1, but it's on the list of things that you could use. So I think that
you need numbers there.
Exactly.
I mean, that
you got to have bodies.
Numbers and a very fluid situation that I saw in the bowl game last in the not the bowl, but in the lead up these championship conference games. Watson gets an appendicitis for the Saints and can't play, so they sign a guy that hadn't played with them all year, and he goes in there and catches a touchdown pass.
Yeah.
You can't do that in college. I mean, you can't pick up a guy off the waiver wire. You know what I mean? You got to bring a guy in and train him and develop him. And I just think a lot of it will go with our personnel, how we're going to handle our personnel. We were heavy 2 tight end team a lot down the stretch this year because those guys really protect the edge for us. Now, what are we going to be now when as I see us working Cook into the system a little more now that Mecole and Godwin are out there? I can see him being a fluctuating type of a move guy, like they call a freak guy that can play slot, could come back and line up in the backfield, a lot like Kamara does for the Saints. But that's all projected stuff. But you base your offense around what your personnel can do, and it starts out with a really good offensive line and a really good quarterback, which we have. So, we'll be able to use these people accordingly.
Ton of questions rolling in here.
Let's get them, baby. Let's roll.
Ton of questions rolling in here. One from our good friend Chuck Ward. Very interesting question. He's asking about Nick Cross. And Nick Cross, another Rivals 100 defensive back, a safety out of DeMatha, one of the top high schools in Maryland. A guy who is committed to Florida State. We've talked about him a lot on this show. Committed to Florida State. Got a coach who's been hired by Maryland. Number of factors going on here. Did confirm that Georgia was in home with him last night. Ooh, brought the big guns with him too, so it was KS, yeah.
Hey, just point this out. One of the things that always impressed me about you, when something comes out about a guy and it's really salient, you don't hit me with much, but you sent me a deal that this guy ran in the 60 in the indoors up there and ran like a 6.63. Was that it?
I think so, yeah.
Now, that is smoking, and I'm not joking.
I think that was maybe the nation's best time for indoors.
Yeah, I believe so this year.
Those kind of numbers, just like we saw with Tyson Campbell, you just can't make up that stuff. I mean, and he's a very athletic kid, and he's a guy, when you say go by the take the best available, he's probably the best available guy that we're recruiting.
I think so. I definitely think so.
I wouldn't put any words in his mouth, but I know.
No, I would never agree with
Kirby to go to Maryland, and this guy's never visited.
Yeah. No, and I think with Cross,
he sent a little bit of interesting tweet out when we hired Warren, didn't he?
Yeah, he did. He had kind of the googly eyes, when they made the hire. So a guy he's familiar with, certainly. And I'll tell you, the thing about it is, and Chuck's question says, do you think that if Elam says he's coming, if Kyer Elam says he's coming, will Georgia continue to recruit Nick Cross? I think absolutely.
Exactly.
I don't think there's any reason. Really? I don't think there's any reason to give up on Nick Cross. If Nick Cross wants to come, you get a spot for him.
Well, you need a receiver.
You can figure it out.
Okay.
Yeah.
But again, that's what I was asking you specifically.
But we do have. We were talking to that Miami guy being a transfer, which we could count forward in the summer.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you saw what he did with Crumpton. He brought him in when we needed a receiver. He brought him in from California, a JUCO guy. So, I mean, he's got a lot of different irons in the fire here. But I just think we got a chance to get a guy like that. He's a national recruit.
Yeah,
and he's a guy
and you get him. Let's say you get him. You're able to, I think, to walk over to the defensive backs room and say, "Hey, Mark, it's been great, and you've done a great job for us here, but you were a natural receiver coming out of high school, and let's see if you can do it again, buddy."
Maybe, but I tell you what, Kirby's high on him, and he thinks he's a pro defensive back. You know, and in all fairness to the kid, he's already moved once. I think that'd be hard to do. But
you could have Kair, like you said. He can switch over.
But the thing about the one thing I want to add here, because I don't add a lot about recruiting, but I know that in talking to Mel Tucker, when occasionally when I'm over there, he was so fired up about this kid and our shot at him. He said, "Coach, this guy is a different guy." You know, and you're looking at a guy that's coached so many guys in the pros and all that, and he had a good relationship with him, and everything kind of. We lost a little bit, but I know Lanning and those other guys kept working him, but we didn't have a secondary coach. Now that we got, by that, somebody designated it.
Yeah, right.
But now that we might just come in the back door because, Maryland, they can say all they want to, hey, we're going to be good and all that, but, are we going to beat Penn State? Are we going to beat Michigan? Are we going to beat Ohio State in our own division?
Florida State's saying, can we beat anybody? Or is it going to be like last year again? And that's where he's currently committed and has been for some time. Called it his dream school, so important to remember that, and you definitely can't cross those guys off the list here. But I do think that Georgia, look, they're making him a priority.
If I'm making the case, I walked to him and I putting words in Kirby Smart's mouth last night. Son, great job on that 60-meter indoor time you put in there. Let me tell you about two other track guys I have. Both run a 10-3 100 meters. One is my left starting cornerback, one's my right starting cornerback, in Tyson Campbell and Eric Stokes. I took a kid in Eric Stokes that nobody even thought could play cornerback, and he started for me the rest of the season. I got in a 5-star guy there. We like fast cornerbacks. They see the field. We can develop them because you point to Stokes. Again, like you said, if there's ever when any of the opposing fan bases want to bang Kirby Smart to say he only recruits, you show him what he's done with guys like Eric Stokes, Tyler Clark.
How many rings does he have? Hey, come on, man.
I'm just saying, it's
but
out there.
I would say this to the kid, too. And if you want to run track, we just won the national championship track last year. So we know what we're doing there.
Can you imagine the 4x100 Georgia put together with Tyler Simmons, Eric Stokes?
Yeah, no doubt. Tyson Campbell.
The
difference, I will say this in Nick Cross, and I think that it's a significant difference. He is super quick like those guys, but he is more ready built, I think, for day one.
Frame.
Woo, man.
Really?
He is built ready for it. Tyson Campbell and Eric Stokes, great players, still on the thin side, still putting some meat on the bones.
But Stevenson's big though, right?
Stevenson, he's been hitting the buffet a little. He might have to slim down a little bit, but I think with Cross, you've got a kid who is ready-made frame for the next level, and that's a big
question.
Deal. Let's hop into this, then we'll hop back into some questions.
I want to tell folks real quick about some of the stuff that's going on with Ford, our Athens Ford. And I'm going to break it out to the bigger Ford company because in their 2019 models, we talked about a lot of the 2018s, but I was looking at some of the stuff that's available in the 2019s that are just going to keep you safe. And the technology in these 2019s blows my mind because I'm always one of those guys that's like, well, what's the real difference between this year and last year? A few bells and whistles. They have this the technology that's in these things with the adaptive cruise control where, you're driving along and you lock onto the car in front of you and it slows down, you slow down. That's very cool, but not brand new. It's been out there before. The lane keeping system, keep you from going lanes. I get that. But what I like is this cross traffic alert thing. When you're going down the highway 65, 75 miles an hour, heading to Florida for the Georgia-Florida game, the cops are everywhere, and you're looking to get over and you never feel comfortable quite changing lanes because, there's always construction going on. That BLIS system with the cross lane thing lets you know if there's somebody out there,
Oh, yeah.
in your blind spot. It's incredible the way it shows. It has a 360-degree view of your car, and it lets you know if there's somebody there. But this is the stupidest thing, though, that I really, really like. Auto high beam control. So you put your high beams on, and you're driving, and someone else comes opposite way. It turns them off for you.
Oh,
and then turns them back on.
I like that.
It's the smallest thing, but I'm like,
That's still one of those things that I freak out when I see a cop. I'm like, oh, shit, I got my high beams on. You know?
So I'm looking at all this amazing stuff. The rear cameras, the enhanced park assist. It's like, hey, I need to help parking. It'll do it for you. The trailer coverage thing. So you're bringing a trailer with you, and you need to know if you can get over it. This thing will still help you with that. It'll help you back up your trailer. It's unreal. Hill descent control, going down a hill, it will adjust it for you. So if you go to Ford.com and click on the technology tab there, I'm not even going through all the tabs. There's so many of them, and you can get all this stuff at Athens Ford. And the reason I'm mentioning the big company than the small one, all this technology packed into their new vehicles that you can get at Athens Ford, and at Athens Ford you get the lifetime powertrain warranty and unreal customer service. So if you get a chance, swing out by there. But try some of this new technology. This is life and death stuff.
Yeah.
Now, the high beams thing, okay, it's not. But when you see people crashing because they get in lanes.
The lane assist, that's awesome.
And I'm not going to say that I almost could have used that the other day when I was going around Highway 10.
We're a hands-free state now, sir.
I'm just saying we were going around Highway 10. I didn't think anybody was on my left side. I looked over and I got over and heard I'm like, oh, sorry. It would have been nice to have that. Point being, the stuff that the new technology in the 2019s, if you're thinking, well, why would I get a 2019? There is life and death, and just stuff that makes your life a lot easier. The technology is going to help you stay safer and help you park and drive and all that good stuff. So get a chance to try that out.
All right, Coach. We're going to let you sit this one out unless you got some comments for us. But normally we know. Well, I know normally you don't like to weigh in on coaching hires because you've been in that arena. Everybody's got an opinion. So, but if you've got any, basically,
just let me preface this with one thing, and then you take it.
There
okay?
you go. All right.
The big overview for me with Coach Smart's recent hirings is you always change a losing game and you never change a winning game. He has a staff intact that he feels like can articulate what he wants to the players, can coach up his system both ways and special teams, and to bring in, even though he lost a lot of firepower, a lot of two really great coaches that have a lot of experience, he basically said publicly by these hirings, hey, we've got the people here in place with our system. We're not going to rock the boat bringing in people in high authority positions to take over something that I already feel like I got people capable of taking care of. So that was my take on the hires, and I applaud him for that because, he knows what he wants, and to get a high-powered guy that in a position of authority to bring in both coordinator positions would have caused a lot of ruckus on the staff that you don't need to have.
Absolutely.
Okay, that was my quote.
All right. So, Roddy, I'm going to ask you because it comes from our guy Chris Metcalf. He says,
"Hey, Chris.
Do you know, or I'm sorry, here you go. Do you see the staff changes as an upgrade?"
No. I see it as a push.
Okay, explain.
Okay, you get James Coley. He's going to run the same offense. If you want a different offense, Kirby Smart would have told Jim Chaney, run a different offense. You look at, what's his name going to coach for Jeremy Pruitt, Jim Chaney going up there. Jeremy Pruitt's going to turn to Jim Chaney and say, here's the offense I want to run.
Sure.
That it's your boss. Now, if Kirby Smart had said, hey, I want to run the wing T, Jim Chaney could have called it. He said, I want to run full spread. Jim Chaney could have called that. He's called all of them. He knows it. It wasn't him going, well, I'm damn determined to run on first down, second down, and throw on third. No. If you don't like something, Kirby Smart could have overruled it. So he's going to run. He's going to do the same stuff. Now, maybe Coley convinces him more to, hey, let's throw it more here. Let's do this. Coley's going to have his input, but I don't see a fundamental change when you have stuck around. You kept your offense designated for what Jake Fromm runs best. You've lost a couple five-star quarterbacks who've gone off to do other things. Maybe they play in different systems, but this system is designed run first, play action pass. One read, throw it in your dump guy, and it's effective. It's got you to the national championship game. It got you to the SEC championship game where you were leading. It's going to get you back to the SEC title game again this year, and maybe in the playoffs. So I don't see a big change there. And on offense,
plus the entire staff intact.
yeah, you haven't changed anything else there. So where's the big change? So to me, it's not an upgrade, it's not a downgrade, it's the same. On defense, losing Mel Tucker is huge. The guy knows defense back and forth. But you're bringing up a couple young guys. I'm assuming he still hasn't, as of taping on Tuesday at 12:37. If you're listening to this later in the week, Kirby Smart has not designated a defensive coordinator yet. I think he's going to name Lanning and maybe Schumann as his co-defensive coordinators. It's a guess on my part. Again, not wholesale changes over there. He's brought in a defensive backs coach, a guy who we don't know that well. Mm-hmm. You did a great piece. You called up all these other reporters who had covered him in the past. They gave their takes on him, and he sounds pretty good.
And if you look at the resume, the guy is clearly a fast riser. Yeah. I mean, he is shot up the coaching ranks.
So is Lanning, and so is Schumann. And again, those guys are still there. So is Trey Scott's still there. So,
and I think,
and it's Kirby Smart's defense. So again, how's that going to change?
One thing in his defense too. Somebody said, well, he was in 2 losing programs before he got to Florida. Hey, there's nothing a lot of times you can do about a situation that you're in like that. You just don't – you look at the overall, there's a lot of good coaches that are in programs that are on the move too. And, North Carolina kind of went downhill a little bit. Tennessee, by the time he got there, wasn't much you could do about it. It was there. But – for him to be offered a job at Florida last year from Tennessee, I thought was pretty impressive. And then for Kirby to have, I know we talked to multiple people around the country. That's the only thing I'll say. That
now I put a note up this morning about another guy he spoke to. He spoke to Mike Reed at Clemson. Our Clemson guy reported that this morning.
Well, but the point is,
just a call, heads up like that.
All of us would like to know everything that the coach does, interviewing people. But I know one thing: this is his bailiwick. This is what he's been. He's coached secondary. He's not going to hire a guy that he doesn't feel like can work within the framework of the way he coaches. He's a demanding coach, but he knows the secondary. And as an assistant coach, it's hard to be a coach at the position that your head coach.
Yeah.
If you're an O-line coach and you're a guy like Phil Fulmer was the head coach, I mean, he's going to be around the O-line. Kirby's going to be around secondary. So I just hit the point about that thing about the guy.
No, the guy
feels the need of what Kirby wanted to blend in with Lanning and Schumann and Trey Scott. And I would think that Trey would be a really good guy to tell him about because he coached with him at North Carolina. So
I'd forgotten that connection.
Yep.
But that's my point is, do you see the defense changing a whole lot when that's, like you said, that's his bailiwick. That's Kirby Smart's baby. If there's if the new coach comes in and says, I want to change up the secondary, Kirby's going to look at him like, from what? In other words, he would have to justify a change of Kirby Smart's defense, and maybe he comes in with some great ideas, and maybe it gets better. But
maybe some techniques,
yeah,
but never.
But my point being is, I don't see a wholesale change, and that's why I'm saying it's not an upgrade, it's not a downgrade. To me, it's a push because you lost 2 coaches, you lost 2 very good coaches, you replaced them, you moved a couple guys up. But they were in that system. So to me, it's system continuity. You're not changing things. So I don't think there's going to be a giant change.
I would agree with that. I'm going to say downgrade overall just because of experience. The amount of experience you've lost between Mel Tucker and Jim Chaney as compared to these 2 guys, that's hard to replace. I mean, it just is. And so I think that, these were solid hires. I think that anytime you can pull a guy away from one of your most hated rivals, hey, that's always a good thing. And
on the weekend that he did it, too. The recruit. Okay, for folks that may not follow recruiting very well, we mentioned Georgia is in on Kaiir Elam. Georgia, I think their biggest competition was the University of Florida. The secondary coach at the University of Florida just happened to be announced as the secondary coach at Georgia on the weekend that Kaiir Elam is visiting Georgia. So I don't know how the timing worked out.
Puppet strings.
But if you had to announce him, that was quite the time to do it, is when, hey, Kaiir, I want to introduce you to, we finally made a defensive backs hire. Come on in.
Maybe someone you're familiar with.
Charlton Warren, come on in the door. And Sunday walks in and
it's like when Sting showed up in the red makeup instead of the black and white, man. I mean, he'd converted parties, and you were like, what's happening? he comes in. Maybe they did the whole thing. Yeah, maybe they did gave Charlton Warren some smoke and let him come out in a
Come from the
Gators
rafters.
polo and rip it off. No, he's changed.
Let me point out this one thing now that you guys have said that, and I just want to make this one point for the fans out there and the listeners and the people that are watching. You know, if you just put yourself in the case of a CEO of a company and you lose two of your division heads that have really been a big part of your success, but part of the success is the product that they represent. So you've got to, replace these people with, either from within or from outside, but you're not going to change the product much because you understand that product. You know how to sell it. You know how to teach it. You know how to do everything. So in Kirby's case, as the head coach, you can't get too involved with position meetings, with all the little things because there's so many different units. But you have to have a grasp of the special teams. What are they teaching? You have to have a grasp of the defensive, the way you call your defenses, the way the system, the offense. It's harder for a defensive coach to understand that offensive terminology because you've been a defensive coach all your life. He's got a really good grasp on that now, so why change that and have to add that to the fact that he's training a new secondary coach within his system? So, to me, it was the best move to not – if we were 8-4, 3 years in a row, you go for somebody new, you know what I mean?
With a new system.
But, you don't – you know what you know what you've been teaching, and that's why he's moving Lanning and Schumann or however he's going to do it because they know, and he brought Lanning in last year because he knew the system.
Yeah.
He saw that handwriting on the wall. So everybody's quick
to keep him.
Everybody's quick to judge, and that's normal. But I've always felt like don't make rash judgments, and I would tell the players that too. You lost a great secondary coach. You got a new guy in, give him a chance. He's not going to coach like Mel Tucker. He's going to coach his way, but you got to let him show you, and then for the guys that hadn't been getting as much of a shot, it's a new lease on life. This guy might see something. A good example for me is we had a center at Marshall that I thought just wasn't very good. That was the way I felt about him, and so did our line coach, Coach Selfo. Well, the new staff comes in, and they work with John Wade. He played in pros for 10 years. I mean, we did a poor job with John. So I'm just saying.
Do he ever forgive you?
No, he understood that. I mean, his daddy was a car dealer. He was a good guy.
Last thing I want to say on Charlton Warren.
See, I do bust myself on
You do once in a while.
His 2019 signing class at Florida, which I think is something that we should look back on. Chester Kimbrough, 6 foot, 175, 4-star out of New Orleans, Louisiana. Not an easy place to pull kids. Kimbrough, not a guy who was pursued heavily by LSU necessarily, but still a great pull for them. A guy we saw in Rivals Camp perform very well. Jadon Hill out of Madison, Alabama. I think he's out of James Clemens, if I'm not mistaken. A 3-star guy who was a 4-star guy for some time. Bob Jones for him. But a 3-star guy now, was a 4-star for a long period of time. I like his length. I think that he's a good player. And then you've got 5-star Chris Steele, all the way from Bellflower, California, 6 foot, 175, previously committed to the USC Trojans, decided that he would take his talents all the way across the nation.
Could you see him flipping to USC over this?
I don't know. He's inked. He's
already there.
He's done. Yeah. So
he's already enrolled.
He was not happy with it either. He put that on Twitter and let everybody know that he was not real thrilled about that. But I think that he was comfortable with Dan Mullen and the rest of the staff as well. So he kind of understood. He understood the business of it. But
it's still ridiculous that these kids sign
you're locked in. Yeah.
December 19th, and then 2 weeks, 3 weeks later, your coach is gone, and there's nothing you can do about it. And if he'd waited to sign in February, he could make a different choice.
That's tough.
They got to change that rule.
I agree.
I wanted to talk to you real quick about a new product at Your Pie. I'm a little nervous about this. It's because they do their different craft style pizzas. There's limited times. They had the one with the Zapp's Voodoo chips before, and then they had the peach and prosciutto. However you say it, pizza. Now they have one that's called the Slider Pie, and it's featuring the Impossible Burger, which is not a real burger. It's the plant-based Impossible Burger. So you have the plant-based Impossible Burger cut and sliced, dribbled onto a pizza that tastes like a slider. Now, here's the thing. They don't just make this stuff up out of whole cloth.
Sure.
I've been to the office over there. They have a huge kitchen. They try these things. They test them. They have 50 locations. They have 60 more in production.
Not bad.
60, 50, I think in maybe 2 years they may have over 100 and something locations.
Open a ear pie.
Yeah, exactly. So if you get a chance, this is how fast this place is growing. And for them to come out and say, hey, we're going to make this one pizza that has andouille sausage and Zapp's chips and this dressing on top of it. And you look at it and you go, who the hell would eat that? Then you try it and you're like, this is amazing. And you think, hey, we got this one that has peach slices and prosciutto on it. Try it with this. You're like, no, I would never try that. And you eat it and you're like, this is phenomenal. So now all of a sudden they've got this.
We need to go video you eating this.
I'm just saying.
I know you're a skeptic of these
I'm a skeptic.
plant-based meats, if you will.
But I'm not. I'm all about meat, not vegan stuff. But now my wife likes veggie burgers and stuff like that, and so this might be something. I'll let her try it first. But for them to partner up with the Impossible Burger brand and enough to supply 50 locations. This is not something they went into lightly. They've been dead on in their craft series of pizzas.
Yeah, you got to trust them.
I'm gonna have to try.
They're the Kirby Smart of pie, if you will.
Well, I remember people going, "Who the hell is Dan Lanning?"
Yeah, yeah.
All of a sudden, so Trey Scott, I don't know about him, and then all of a sudden, he's landing some Trayvon Walkers and guys like that.
Also, when you're out there, get you an Academia beer.
Yes.
Shout out to them for always being a great sponsor of ours.
What are you drinking over there?
I'm drinking the Skull, the farmhouse ale. Definitely a little funky, a little wild, but hey, I like it. A little something to switch it up.
We actually had a customer come in the other day, Terry Forshey, great guy, and he came and tried the beers. He tried the IQ IPA, and he says, okay, the IQ is good. Ranks right up there with Hobnail. Thanks for the recommendation. I've tried to find a really good beer for my Academia. Now I have got one. The wife liked the Skull.
Yeah.
And the one that
I did as well.
So good, dude. Man. So that was fast. So anyway, a guy who is a beer connoisseur, very sophisticated palate. He's not going to, find. He's not an easy. You can't win him over easily.
Sure.
He tried the IQ IPA. Now he likes it, and he's actually going to be buying IQ IPA from Academia Brewing Company. So again, if you get a chance, swing by Academia Brewing Company. Try the different beers out there. Again, they have different ones all the time. Big fan of the food is phenomenal. I'm a big fan of the Hunker Down Brown, which they got a note from UGA saying you can't call it Hunker Down, and he's like, yeah, you can. So I think he's gonna call it Hunker Brown. So,
sounds great.
Yeah. So something like that. But if you get a chance, try the Hunker Down Brown Ale. It is magnificent beer.
All right.
We need to get Josh to get that in here for the shows.
Question here for Coach from our good buddy Ronnie Brown. Always got some good questions for us. Ronnie says, Coach,
Hunker Down Brown.
With so many big names from different backgrounds and personalities on campus last weekend and all these other weekends for official visits, how do you plan activities to fit all these people and cover all your bases as well? Also, how do you let them know that they're wanted and make them see things that let you know that you are catering to their needs a bit?
Well, one of the things you do is you get a meticulous schedule set up where you can alleviate the herd mentality. You want to try to get away from the fact that there's a lot of people here where somebody just gets consumed up in the fact, good Lord, they got all these guys here. Well, how do I fit? You need to spread it out where you don't have big groups of people together a lot where you get the individual attention. So you really spread out your staff and your people, and you make sure that the head coach, you spend an inordinate amount of time with each person, but in different settings. You might be going on a campus tour and you ride the bus with you, all right? When you go over to the Ramsey Center, you walk around that with Roddy. When you go to the indoor building, you're in there with somebody else. But you got to keep working, and you got somebody with a list where you spread it around. You're sincere, but you're spending the time, but you're not just – you don't want somebody to say, well, he never did talk to me. He was always with Roddy or something like that. That people are sensitive to that.
And we've seen that. We've had kids come back from a junior day saying, I was there the whole day. The coaches never talked to me.
And the same thing with the parents, too. So another key role is who is the host. Some kids are just a lot better at making the kids feel better about what's going on than others. Some people are so self-centered that they really don't understand what it takes to recruit. You know what I mean? So you got your best salesmen are going to be the people that are taking them out. So that's going to be something that you talk about for a long time before you decide that you're going to give this guy to so-and-so, because you certainly don't want to run them off by the guy that's taking care of them. And then you coach up everybody. You coach up, let's just say I'm a position coach and I'm taking care of my guy for sure, but I also need to understand what makes so-and-so tick that's a defensive back. So when I have time to talk to him, or we just walk up, that I don't go up to him, ask him a dumb question like, what do you run the 40 in, or something like that, as compared to, hey, boy, I saw that tape on you, and, I'm a receiver coach, but we're going to have a hard time going against you in practice. That's just a little thing, but it means a lot because it's your whole staff involvement. And then coach up the wives, because you're going to have the mamas in here, you're going to have the grandmamas, whoever it might be, but you gotta make them feel like it's a family atmosphere, and you can't fake that. You got to do it. So, and then the last thing would be the academic appointment. You've got to really have a lot of faith and confidence in whoever's talking to them about the academic profile, whoever that dean might be, whoever that professor might be, is going to really point out the fact that you are concerned about academics as a football staff, that you have football players in there that the coaches check on, and they're going to help you get your degree. And we're going to do the same things academically to help you that they're doing with the strength coach and all that. And then the last thing would be, when you're taking them around to take the pictures with the uniforms on and taking them in the weight room and the training room, don't have 10 people in there at once doing that. You got Scott Sinclair talking to this one guy about his specific needs. As he said, hey, I saw your profile. This is what we're going to do. This is the program we're going to work on to get you bigger at your position, or whatever it might be, or quicker. And you're talking to him specifically instead of standing out there in front of 15 people. Well, we have a really good off-season program, and we do this. You got to be specific where every guy thinks he's the only one on your campus, whether you have 5 in, 1 in, or 15 in.
$1 million worth of game for $9.99 from Jim Donnan right there. I love that. Well, we
need to break this out and put it into a story.
I feel like I could run a recruiting department.
I forgot
now.
this. The last thing is the checkpoints throughout the weekend where you get updates from the host, where he's texting you, hey, Coach, this guy's concerned about blah, 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 and you just bring it up without really acting like it. You know it. Well, one of the things we really want to work on here is being sure that you understand what your situation is. We want you to come in. We're going to give you a shot. If the guy doesn't think he's going to give it, then you're telling him that. And then the last thing is just the closing of the last meeting that you have with the prospect. You just can't have, when you have 10 guys in, you can't meet 30 minutes with each guy in a row on Sunday morning when they're all waiting out there. One of the worst things I ever saw with the staff we were on, our head coach would be in there talking to a guy, and there'd be 3 or 4 families sitting out there in the waiting room like you're getting ready to go in for a gasoline enema or something. You know what I mean? So you just want to bring them up to your office when it's that time for them to be there, where it's like he's ready to see me. This is a big deal. I'm going in to see Kirby Smart in his office. And then when you do talk to him, don't sit behind your table where you look like you're this authority. Have a nice couch and sit down around, and where you can see all these family pictures of Kirby and Mary Beth and the kids, and all these pictures of the players he's coached, and you talk to them about things like that. But the close is the killer. That's the last thing you do, where you come there and say, look, and sometimes you got to break the ice a lot of times. There's a lot of tension there because the kid doesn't want to commit or say what so one of the best things I ever said to a guy, I said, hey, I know how tough it is on you right now. And, there comes a point you got to say something. My wife wouldn't have married me if I hadn't asked her. So, I need to know how you feel, man. And every time you say that, they laugh a little bit, but it breaks the ice. And then tell me how you feel. What's it going to take for you to come here? So that's it.
Ronnie Brown says, these insights, among others, make this the only UGA podcast worth watching. I appreciate
it, Ronnie, but I think that's some good stuff.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
We really need to break that out as a story. Here's how to run a recruiting department 101. You actually should write a recruiting book.
Yeah.
You know, all these up-and-comers, you know.
Well, I tell you, the best part would be, what does it take to get one?
That would make it a bestseller.
You know, you talk about that question about, you know, my wife went to marry, and that one of the best ones after I really laid it out on to this one lady. She said, okay, Coach, let's talk about automobiles in plural.
Well, you did give your wife a ring.
I said,
remember?
I said, well, I would just think we'd just give you one car, but maybe two. That's a little tough. No, those things don't happen.
Yeah, they do not.
All right. I got a couple more questions we want to take, but
I want to mention thanks to Chadwick Avery for coming on there in the mentions there. He said that he called Aaron Overhead Doors, and the guy, a technician, came out by the name of Matt and fixed his garage door. So that is a unsolicited testimony to talk about, and said he did a great job. And again, when you call Aaron Overhead Doors, Ryan Lucia and the folks who run that place, these are Georgia folks. They're big Georgia fans. They have financing. If you're like, hey, I need to get my garage door fixed, but you know it's January, we just spent a ton of money on Christmas. They have financing available for you. That's 0% financing. But they're going to send someone out who works for Aaron Overhead Doors. Now, I just went out to Lowe's and I'm getting them to put in a new stove. Our 21-year-old stove kind of bit the bucket. Well, we've had it for 21 years. I don't know how old it was prior to that, but it is beyond repair at this point. So they're gonna send someone out to measure, make sure that they can just swap them in and out. I'm like, okay, I have no idea who that is. This person doesn't work at Lowe's. This is an independent contractor. They're going to call to go out in 30 inches, and I know it's going to fit because I measured it myself, but they have to do that to put it in. Point being, I'm getting God knows who coming out to my house doing God knows what. This does not happen at Aaron Overhead Doors when you call them and say, hey, I need this fixed, I need this installed, I need something done. They're going to send somebody who works there. They're going to be wearing the Aaron Overhead Door polo or T-shirt or hat or something.
They screen for sex offenders. That's what Roddy's trying to say.
I'm just saying, they screen for everybody. You're not going to have felons there. You're not going to have a guy who's looking around like, well, where do you keep the jewelry? Because we need to know that when we install your garage door. You know, and look, having a brother who worked in the overhead door business for many, many years, I can tell you some horrible, horrible overhead door industry stories. None of which, of course, involved Aaron Overhead Doors because these people know they know the industry they were getting into. They know the bad players in it, and they said, we're going to give people a different alternative. Again, they are a customer service company that just happens to sell overhead doors and service them.
There you go.
So if you want that that Chick-fil-A experience, that Champy's experience, you know, that great customer service. Oh, yeah, by the way, here's what we sell experience, you know. That's who you're going to get at Aaron Overhead Doors.
Robert Barnes here with a quick one. He says, tell us a little bit about Garmin Randolph, a four-star tight end from the state of Georgia, rated as number 7 in the nation. Why aren't we looking at him as a tight end? If you're not familiar with him, he actually plays just up the road from Georgia, about 20 minutes up in Jefferson, Garmin does. Really tall guy. I think the main thing that's got to be holding him back in terms of the relationship with Georgia, first off, very late in the process. Georgia has not shown a lot of interest prior to this, but he's also a very thin guy. He's also a bit more of a receiver. Georgia's scheme calls for some blockers. You've got a thinner receiver
and
type in well, his name's John Fitzpatrick.
But Fitzpatrick.
In John Fitzpatrick. So you've already kind of got somebody like that on the roster. They need some bigger guys for the blocking aspect. Losing a guy like Jackson Harris, impacts things like that. So
where's he going, this kid?
Garmin, I'm not really sure, to be honest with you. I know that Florida has been a consideration kind of throughout, but been a little quiet around him, so I'll definitely check in on that. But if there is something to it with him in Georgia, hey, we'll definitely let you know. As
Good
of right
question.
now, I haven't heard anything, though.
But does Seether fit that mix?
Seether's a bit thinner, too.
He's got a frame, though. He's got a good frame.
Yeah,
Okay.
He's got a frame. And Garmin, to me, looks a bit more, I should say, I guess like a basketball player. Like he's like a slender power forward.
Gotcha.
He's 6'6", long, but, how's he going to bulk up? And where's he going to put the weight on?
Right.
I'm not saying he can't. He's a very good player, like I said, but I just don't know that, as Coach says, first rattle out of the box, that's the guy that you're going with.
What else? We got one last little.
Let's see if I can find us one more.
How about that 6th-round draft choice for the New England Patriots playing quarterback?
Oh, boo! Nobody wants to talk about the Pats, man. I hate the Pats.
I would like to point
but
out.
seriously though, I remember when Lloyd Carr told me about that kid. He said, we just can't get him. It's just such a. The guy's got it. We just got to get. Hey Lloyd, you had him there. It didn't work out as good as you hoped. But
I'm just saying, I felt bad for Ben Watson not being able to play and not making it to the Super Bowl. I'm still a big fan of Alvin Kamara. Kid was always good to me. I saw him at the SEC Championship game, hugged my neck. Great kid. Happy for the two of them. Still hate the Saints. Glad the Saints aren't going to be in Atlanta. But I will say this. I have seen from Saints fans and from LSU fans, they made fun of Georgia fans being upset about the Tyler Simmons offsides call in the national championship game. And like, why are you upset about that? Why do you keep bringing that up?
I saw where
it sucks, doesn't it? It sucks to have the refs blow a call that could cost you the game. So, hey, and anybody else that's laughing at the Saints, laughing at Georgia, laughing at anybody else, wait till it happens to your team in a national championship or conference championship game. And again, it's not one blown call determines the entire outcome of the game, but it damn sure has an effect.
Jasper Saints.
Last question.
I'm just saying.
Last question of the day.
Let's go.
Just the mic drop.
Say it.
Ronnie Brown, last one. He gets the last one of the day. He's got some good one today. He says, Jake or Roddy, which recruit, no matter where they will or where they have committed or will commit, who's been your favorite person to cover this year?
This year?
Yeah.
Oh, that's Clay Webb.
I knew you were going to say Clay Webb. It was the fact that you even had to think about it.
Who's yours?
I got to tell you, I came around. Not came around on because I always liked him, but the more I got to know and the more often I spoke with Trayvon Walker, Ace's kid, man.
Him and Nolan Smith
are
two
of
my favorite interviews.
On it?
Yeah. Yes, absolutely.
Show me a defensive lineman and a dunk, and I'll show you an NFL player.
Yeah.
I'll tell you, Brian Breezy, 5-star nation's top defensive end up there dropping them in. And, yeah. You had a very good update with him from San Antonio?
Yeah, from San Antonio, yep.
So, Brian Breezy, keep that name on.
That's another smart move by Coach Smart. And we talked about this talking about recruiting, looking in the future. You always look at programs that might have some problems with the coach. Is it going to be the coach going to still be there? I mean, we went in and we got two significant players in Maryland that are looking at us in Cross and then this Breezy kid. I mean, because of the upswing there at Maryland, and our national base is just so much better now. The guys we got, you look at the kid that's here, they say he's really knocking them out and seeing. Was it?
Louis Sign, yeah.
Sign is just from Texas, and
I bet he's knocking dudes out.
And then you got Stevenson in here. Man, oh man.
I mean, you're pulling kids out of Louisiana, Texas, Tennessee. 3 defensive linemen out of Tennessee. Who does that?
Absolutely.
Somebody said we got a good lineman out of Tennessee last year too. That might have made freshman All-American or something. Cade Mays.
Oh yeah,
never heard of him. Does he play for Georgia?
Oh God. Trayvon Walker, a kid that I think Georgia fans are absolutely going to fall in love with.
Hey, they're also going to love Nolan Smith because that kid is bright. He's funny. I would say he's the bigger version of Richard LeCounte.
Yeah, I could see that.
And one of the things I would say about your website, I thought Anthony Dasher did a good job about giving a update on the early enrollees and projecting them and talking about the guys that are being redshirted and all. That's really good info. The one thing I would add, the one kid that he talked about, Trayvon Marshall. Is that the way you pronounce it? Tresman Marshall. I got their last name, but he's going to be a heck of a player. But he had to have a little clean up on his shoulder. I think he'll have a little trouble practicing this spring, but he's going to be okay. But I'm telling you, that was a good insight into those guys and where they project.
He would be I would add him as one of my favorite kids to cover in this class because he was always honest with me.
Yep.
Yeah. And I went down to see him a bunch of times. I don't often go to Clinch County, but I was down there numerous times.
Passed the eyeball test, too.
Oh, yeah, I had a heartbeat. But every time I say, okay, you're committed to Georgia, where's the stand? And he never once held back. He didn't he was as honest from day one through the entire process. And I like not having the kid just, trying to tell me what he thinks I want to hear. Tell me the truth. Kid never waffled, never tried to hide anything. Fantastic. Plus, I love the kid who can play running back and linebacker. He's
Yeah.
a monster. So
Absolutely.
keep that idea. Tresman Marshall, like I said, maybe he's not going to be ready for spring, but that's a guy who's you need to watch.
Absolutely.
Good.
All right.
We're going to have to go with that. We're kind of we're ran a little long today, but big shout out to Athens Forward, Aaron Overhead Doors, Your Pie, Academia Brewing Company, Cable East, 365 Game Day, of course, Champions here on Baxter Street. Come by and try the new
Chicken Philly. And,
of course, 11 Alive. We will talk to you folks next week.
That's it for this episode of the UGA Sports Live Podcast. Tune in next week for more Georgia Bulldogs news and notes from Athens.